yes, I would like for this platform to be realizable because I care about, there being a counterexample in the sort of neoliberal hegemony. So yeah, you very comically uh, performed the role of the sort of, I don't know what you call that, the ML sort of purist, anti-imperialist position or whatever. Um, but the sort of more nuanced, let's say pessimistic calculation, which I think Chris has voiced, and I certainly see the validity of what he said, that if Mamdani is successful, he will be pounced upon by the system, and there will be a collusion to ruin him or ruin the movement, and so on. The only way he'll get through some of these necessary reforms is to compromise, basically. That's the sort of
Right.
position of getting things through in our politics, in our established politics. And I see the validity of that critique. But at the same time, if you're trying to mobilize masses of people to believe in something different that goes against the hegemony of neoliberal politics, it kind of helps if you believe in it too, even if you're not totally wedded to this reformist angle of it, that you believe in the gathering storm that can create it in some way and create an example to the rest of the country. Like, this is just a problem if we're making diagnoses for the future. I just don't think we actually can.
Right. It's like one way or the other. These cracks have to be widened,
Yeah, exactly.
and as individuals, we do not have the capacity or the potential to proffer something else.
Yeah.
I do think that it's like there's a reason why I said to me the dichotomy seems to be between jumping in with the all the, like you said, the ambiguities and contradictions, or just folding our arms and staying on the sidelines and saying this is not what I want, this is not what I have read about, you know.
Right. Which is to say, we have to have a sort of strategy to how we expend our energies as individuals, and also as um, collectives of however many we are. Because I totally understand the pessimism and frankly the defeatism of looking at something like No Kings or even like the Mamdani campaign and saying, uh, it's like, I really don't see this going anywhere, or I don't see why I should invest any hope or um, commitment to something that it's just going to make me feel fatigued, and I'm not going to get anything out of it. Um, but like, so we can bring up these extraordinarily goofy expressions of peak liberalism, like the ones that we saw with what were some of the examples from the No Kings? There was the person saying, "Thank you, Biden." uh, there was some there
They're
was some
innumerable.
there were some really
Like
rich ones. Yeah.
the when it comes to the Democrats abroad,
Oh,
people,
right.
American citizens who are residing on some quasi temporary basis, whatever, in other countries, they have a no tyrants
Right.
protests
Right.
because
Because they don't want to
we don't want
offend
to.
their
Yeah,
system,
we don't want to
the
offend the people
monarchy.
who have kings, and I just think like, damn, that's really like that says it all. I think.
So these are good examples of like the most ridiculous expressions of liberalism. But I feel like we shouldn't forget that there's kind of just a normie liberalism of people wanting, when they say, I want my democracy back, or they say, uh, demanding the rule of law, or something, demanding that ICE be held accountable, or demanding that Medicare be protected, and all of these other things. Um, I'm just reiterating that we have to sort of distinguish between really obnoxious foolishness and like normal human expressions of need. Uh, we've talked about having Christian faith forgiveness towards. I mean, I think we exercise it in spades towards conservatives on this podcast, which is a kind of
Yeah,
recovering of humanity. And we shouldn't forget that we also have to do that for liberals and leftists. And I think
that's
it
true.
gets progressively harder to, to exercise the further left you go for some reason, maybe because it comes closer um, to home
I
in a
think
way.
I think that's exactly right. It comes a lot closer to home. But also, I think there's something about there's a snide, haughty attitude
Yeah,
that is pervasive on the nominal far left uh,
that's
that
true.
exists. Like, it's easier for me, anyways, to be a lot more dismissive. And I don't even whatever. I do not think this is not a good thing. I don't think it should be. It's easier for me to be, or yeah, it's easier for me to be dismissive because I find this contemptuous attitude toward everybody else so. I mean, I find it contemptible. I find it so. It's very upsetting because these are, ostensibly these are the layers of people who know better. They have something to offer, and yet these are not the people who you want to hear from, or at least I don't want to hear from. But also, you're not going to hear from them because they're too busy talking to each other about how much everyone else is stupid. That's why it's I have so much more vitriol for uh, other socialists than I do even for you know well, for anybody else.
I mean, it makes sense. That's where you've spent most of your time. That's where you've encountered humans intimately for the last almost how many 25 years.
um, yeah, whatever, something like that, like about 25 years. Yeah,
But I think in
I
my
mean, what you're saying is true though, and I don't, I do think it's important to like,
well,
I
it's
to to acknowledge that, and I don't want to say what I just said as a defense.
yeah,
I feel like an explanation is different than a defense, or
yeah.
it can be, and it should be.
But forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. That
Right. That's
applies.
exactly
That
right.
applies to the thing that's closest to the wound, right?
That's
Um,
exactly, yes.
and it's also it comes close to being directed towards ourselves because we are peripheral to those people in a sense. Like that's
Oh yeah,
maybe
very much so.
that's maybe why the vitriol exists because it's we feel implicated by this attitude of haughtiness. I will say I think there's something about leftist subcultures. I think they're full of people who are doing really important work where they're not just talking to themselves. Tons of people who are involved in um, labor and migrant and community organizing and things that are not kind of this circular, just sort of performance. But something happens in the milieu of the left that is very unsavory, or it can happen. Um,
What's
it's
that?
well, it's ironic because like the criticism has been that most of the people involved in say socialist politics or the DSA, we could say are of the professional managerial class, except they're not even that. It's more just it's more of an attitude. Most of the people in the DSA are workers just the same as the sort of um, less educated factions of the labor force are. But there's this elevation of status by way of education, by way of reading groups and shared vocabulary, and all kinds of things that it would be unfeasible and kind of silly to even communicate outside of this circle to workers you're trying to organize, because a lot of our theory has no application.
Right.
It's like in the
I think it's,
stratosphere of the future.
yeah. I think this is very difficult for a lot of us to recognize, and even more difficult to accept. But what you said is very true. Um, However frustrated and annoyed the average DSA type might be, the 90s and early aughts Maoist, Trotskyist, whatever, uh, hyperactivist group that was like, we're independent of the two-party duopoly, man. So we march with the Democrats, but we also hate them.
I know you're speaking from experience.
I am speaking from a bit of experience. I do regard that as profoundly more destructive and profoundly less. Um, it's even further away from what we need. And so I think, yeah, I think that the contempt that a lot of whatever, I have so much trouble even using the terms that people use these days. Whatever the leftists, I still would like to make the contention that there is no such thing. The left is just a variant of liberalism, whatever. But
Yeah, I think that's true.
that that segment of liberalism has so much contempt for the mainstream of uh, you know of liberalism. Whatever. I just think that they're even less what we need.
It's pretty when you try and talk about it, uh, it's confusing because
Yeah, it really
the
is.
leftist variant of liberalism, left liberalism, has profound contempt for normie liberalism and is antagonistic towards rightist liberalism, which has reactive contempt. Everything is very enclosed in this sort of this haze that you can't even see through. Like,
I mean,
and
I think this is important to just like kind of walk through very quickly.
yeah.
Modernity for the last 500 years or so has been marching pretty inexorably toward this place we are now, where at one point a conservative in a given social struggle might be the supporters of the king, and the liberals might be the radical elements of society who thought we don't need a king anymore. You push that far enough along, and liberalism has
they're still
competition.
saying that.
Well, and there's also that's then, socialism, fascism, these contenders for taking up this mantle of taking up the project of modernity and taking it further, have all gone by the wayside, and all that's left is just liberalism looking inward, and it has created an enormously contradictory and very confusing situation, and it's also untenable. Like, it's, I mean, who the hell knows how long this situation will last, how long it will maintain, or how we will advance whatever, how we'll step out of it. Um, but yeah, so it has left us with a very confusing set of conditions, with very confusing times that we live in. Um, I think that we can be very critical and very even upset about liberalism, and also recognize that there's no alternative on offer.
No, and that's why I would contend we can't discount any ascendant or ignitable social force that is mobilizing popular discontent. The most readily available example is the Mamdani campaign, um, that is wielding a populist rhetoric and policy demand that is deeply ensconced in liberalism, but is demanding a reorganization of what that means, because you're taking what is available, what is deemed possible, and you're messaging that basically right between the eyes of the system and what it says it will allow, and you're mobilizing people toward that end. And I don't think you can skip that step.
Well, I think it's very undialectical to think that the challenge to what is can come from without.
Right.
The challenge to what is going to come from within what is.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
if liberalism has defeated all the contenders for supremacy, for leadership, and all of the discordant kind of all the threads of the different thought have all kind of collapsed inward, and it's all part of this one big mass. All these internal contradictions are constantly, brushing against each other, and it's whatever is going to come next, whatever is going to come as a possibility, is only going to come from within that mix. It's only going to come from within that maelstrom.
Yeah.
What even is there outside of it, anyways? It's not even just that it's not likely to come out of it. What is there outside of it? If capital dominates the globe, liberalism dominates. The liberal philosophical paradigm is the paradigm. That's what is.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about developing a competitor, something to counter liberalism's hegemony from without, where's it going to come from? Space? Like, we only live on the planet. We only live within the realm of human beings, and human beings are entirely within this paradigm.
Yeah. So in this sort of reapproach to human beings, be they wherever they fall on the ideological chart, I think we need to be equipped with preaching class, and that right now, and in the way that it has come about and has ascended, is something like affordability. Like that is the message in which to preach class right now in our politics.
Absolutely. If we're talking about what might become possible from within liberalism, then we have to find the loose threads that, in the stitching that makes up the liberal patchwork of things.
Right.
Say, what can we actually tug on?